two, one. We're live. Thank you so much, Elena, to your, yeah, your time, your presence, being here with us directly from Washington. I am here in Switzerland, a few hours apart from you. I just felt so excited when I saw that you launched your book, and I wanted to host you and have you share a little bit about your findings, your wisdom with all of our followers so that we get to know what you have been cooking. You've been quiet, but there's a good reason for it. So, Elena is a talent acquisition specialist, professional with so many different accolades, and featured on Forbes. I mean, she has a TED talk that I watched and I really enjoyed. By the way, she has been doing a lot of work around empowering teams and enabling leaders to be more human centric with their talent acquisition strategy. When you look at her on LinkedIn, feel free to check her out and follow her, as she states there that she's redesigning success at work from a very actionable way of operating. Also 40 under 40, so very driven. I'm impressed that you've done so much in the last couple of years, and now launching this book. Let me just share here the cover, or maybe you can
I
show us
have it here. I
you
have
have
it here.
it.
It's the only copy I have. It's all nice and bright.
Yes, it's
Nice and bright.
beautiful.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
awesome. Thank you so much for being with us. I'll well let you introduce maybe first yourself, although I said a little bit about yourself, but maybe you can
Yeah.
tell us what you're busy with currently.
Sure. Well, first of all, it's always nice to talk to you. I always enjoy our chats. And we were talking before we went live, and we're like, we connected on LinkedIn, and that's
Yeah.
the beauty of LinkedIn. Like, there's a lot of great platforms out there, but like for professionals in our space, it's a great platform, and I really very much appreciate just the ability to connect with people like yourself. So it's awesome to chat with you. Thank you for the kind introduction. I don't know if I'm wise yet, but I think that like throughout our journey, just building Bestern with Yvonne, and just other things that I've experienced and people that I've got to talk to. There's a lot of lessons that I learned, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of failures that I'm hoping to be able to share with people. But I just love talent. I love everything about talent, and so everything that I do is under the umbrella of talent, which is like, how do we recruit the best talent? How do we keep the best talent? How do we maintain and grow the best talent, right, from different areas, from the company side, from the individual side, and from the manager side. So I'm just passionate about it. I think it directly impacts company and business growth. So it's a rewarding experience overall, and I can't imagine doing anything else right now.
That's awesome. So, what is the book about? Tell me. So, the cover, it's about a rough guide to leadership, to awesome leadership, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so so my business partner and I, Yvonne, we spent a lot of time, of course, kind of when we were working with Bestern, we spent a lot of time working with different clients and organizations, and really just kind of trying to help teams be better, helping managers be better in their jobs, more efficient, more productive. Like, how do you connect with others, etc. And what we've recognized is that there's a lot of leadership content out there in terms of, like, just the general stuff that you have, like, this is what it takes, and kind of very theory based, but there's very little actionable things. Like, there are some, but we didn't want to write a book that's around just like another leadership book. Basically, what we wanted to create is a small guide, and that's like, it's not, the book is like it's not huge, right? And it's just a small guide to help whether you're a new manager or you're an existing manager looking to upskill your leadership and people management skills. It's like just a practical guide of like, hey, like, I feel like I'm not connecting with my team. Like, what are some things I can do? Bam, here's some things you can do. Or, hey, like, I know that, my personal brand as a leader might be important. Like, how do I check in with that? Or, hey, how do I lead by example? Right? What are some things I can do as a leader? Like, actionable things that are going to take like 5 minutes or less every day or on weekly basis where should do it. So like practical things, not these huge kind of big aspirations, but just like many things that one can do as a leader or just as any professional essentially in an organization, to say, like, if I had 5 minutes that I could dedicate to being better, being a better manager, what would that look like? So that's kind of the aim, and it all came together through our research that we've done over the years. Ivan, of course, is, Ivan as well, and he's very much the science guy behind the book. I'm very much like on the people side. So So he did a great job in terms of just really outlining the approach that really considers your brain and neuroscience and how we operate as human beings. So it's something that we've been doing for quite some time. It took us like a year to actually put it out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
But
been a
tell us
journey and it's fun.
the secret you mentioned in the book, like, oh, lead by example is not one way to lead, it's the only way to lead, truly. How do
Yeah,
you
yeah, some of the research we found in the past is like, how do you actually influence people? Like, what's the best way to influence others? And the best way to influence is like is really just for leading by example. So you actually have to be the one. The best way people learn, just as children, right? Like you can tell you for those that have kids, right, or younger siblings. Like you can tell a kid to do all day long what to do, but they're gonna observe you and they're gonna watch what you do, and that's how they're going to. And the same thing with us humans. We're just now grown people. We're not kids anymore, so we're now grown, and we observe others around us. And when you don't have an example of what's the right way to do things, you're just going to be probably lost. Maybe you have a natural ability to be a good leader, and some people do. So some people are better at leadership than others. Some people have these innate skills to be able to connect with others and really be empathetic and all those things, but a lot of us don't. That's the reality, right? So it's like, how do you make sure you're checking in with yourself? So like that piece about like self-awareness, step number one. Like,
yeah.
how are you positioning yourself? What are you doing each day as an individual? And then what are you showcasing to your team? So that's the best way to influence people. Like this stick approach really doesn't, or the stick and carrot approach doesn't really work no longer, right? So and final thing I'll say here is like the younger generation in particular, they want somebody who's inspirational. They want somebody who's who they can look up to, somebody who is really kind of driving their agenda forward, but does it in a very mindful way and all those things. So it's not just about like business, right? Because if you're leading by example, and if people are inspired by you, and if they're bringing their best self to work, ultimately the business will benefit. So
Yeah, like you show up, because I remember having this boss, like he would bike to the office. And then like people who wanted to impress him started to bike to the office too. And it was funny because like yeah, it was a form of leadership, but it's not like directly um, related to business. But it did segment those who bike, those who don't bike, or the runners. Sometimes they'll go
yeah.
for a run, lunch break. So, but then it creates some I guess tribes, and you associate with those so-called high performers. Would you associate like top leaders are maybe I'm assuming here, but would you think the higher up you go, the more these people are going to have very tight schedules, right? Very tight uh, um, time management strategies. Because I think there's like three things that I was reading this the other day that will change as you grow. So
Mhm.
time management, values, skills,
Mhm.
right? And I never thought values would change, but maybe um like, what's your opinion on that? Like, do you
Mm.
do you see that also happening as people evolve and climb to the next level? And maybe that's a form of safety, or somewhat a guarantee.
Mm.
Um, Maybe I'm asking too many questions at
No, no,
once.
no. It's a good question. I can't speak on the values. I don't. I never. I would have to think about that one. But I can definitely speak on the time management, the skills. So
Yeah,
as you grow an organization, and I see this all the time. I'm actually working with that right now at the moment. Is there are individuals who are placed in management positions, and to your point, some things need to change. And
yeah,
some of the top kind of leaders and performers, what they're really great at is many things, but two things that come to mind right away is the time management piece, which is they are phenomenal delegators, they are
mm,
phenomenal mentors and coaches,
yeah,
and also energy management. right? Energy management is a big one,
Mm.
right? So hence a lot of the kind of the top leaders, around the world that we hear about, always, they have some kind of routine or habits around well-being, because that's what it's at, right? Because you're dealing with a lot of stress, you're dealing with a lot of uncertainty, and you can make excuses all day long that you're very busy and you don't have time, but there are plenty of examples out there of leaders who are very, very busy with, full-time leadership roles and full-time families, and sometimes, other X, Y, and Z engagements, and they still make time for those well-being. So whether it's fitness, whatever fitness means to one, whether it's going for a walk or yoga or hardcore exercises, whatever it is, like fitness is, to each his own, but something to keep your mind and body kind of sharp and moving. All of these things are important to energy management,
Yeah.
because if you are not getting proper sleep, if you're not taking care of your body and mind as a leader, and then you're showing up to a workplace and maybe, you're just tired or grouchy, or you have to make certain decisions, your decision making skills are already shut down. You can only use your brain so much. Like, you, at some point, the biology in you will kick in, and you're going to be tired, and you're not going to be making good decisions, and you're not going to be able to connect with people, and and the emotions, it's harder to manage emotions, etc. So I think number one is really that energy management, and number two is that time management, which is, what do I need to delegate? And one of the biggest obstacles I see for young managers or new managers is, typically they are promoted from, let's say in the tech industry, they've been a developer, and they've been or an architect working, a software architect, and they're promoted because they've been doing this job for 5-6 years, and now they're a manager because the company assumes, oh, this person's doing that, they can lead a team, they can teach others
Right.
to do that. It's very different being an individual contributor. You can be the best developer there is, does not mean that you're going to be a great leader. So there's a gap that exists in many, many people, and you have to be able to close that gap. And one of the biggest things that I see in young managers, or just new managers today, is that inability to let go of things, to
Yeah.
not being able to mentor and coach, to not have the patience to mentor and coach others, or connect with others, and to really truly tap into other people's talents who can help you be a better manager. Because your job as a manager changes as you go into a manager position. Your job is now to make sure that those that are working with you, you're empowering them and giving them things to do and try, so they can grow and they can experience. If you're still doing all those things, you're limiting your team, you're not developing them, and at the same time, you can't go up because you only have so many hours in a day. And that's
Mm.
why in tech, final thing I'll say here, in tech, you see a lot of burnout. And that is because a lot of people in tech, first of all, it's a very energy demanding job, because you're just sitting in front of a computer, or even finance, whatever industry you pick, right? And so if you're not able to manage your time and manage your energy, that is a long term, it doesn't work. It doesn't work long term. So that's what I
Oh,
would
I
say.
love what you said about letting go, because it goes so thank you, Iris. Amen to that, she said. I love what you said about letting go, because I hear a lot of times people say, oh, in interviews they will go, what are your weaknesses? Well, it's hard for me to say no, it's hard for me to delegate. So I'm like, no, don't say that. That's exactly what you should be able to do in leadership roles. And then I thought about it this morning. I went for a run, and I was just thinking, okay, sometimes I go for a run and I put one song on repeat, 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 repeat. And I'm like, I'm crazy, or maybe I'm just really focused. And I thought, maybe the best the best outcomes that I've achieved were at times when I was just like really narrow to and just blocking everything out. Like I'm not listening to anybody's advice. I'm not reading any book. I'm just like, I'm gonna do this. And if it's the only thing I do, I'll do it every day, and I'll be, obsessed about it. And these moments have really yearned the best results for me overall.
Mm,
And maybe it's the power of like blocking or focusing or saying no or delegating, but altogether I think maybe there is an element of uh, when you climb the ladder, you're just so overwhelmed by all these meetings all of a sudden in your calendar. And it's not just the work you do, it's also like being part of those leadership meetings and check-ins. So how
mhm.
how can you be like say no without being a jerk, right? Because you want to
Yeah,
be there for everyone, but you also want to be there for yourself, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's not, by no means is it easy to do that, because it requires you as an individual to change the way you're used to behaving. So you've been operating as in an X format for X number of years, and now all of a sudden you have to change. And that's why, like, again, like something that we do in the book is give like these mini things. So for example, if you have trouble saying no, let's say you have something coming up this week, choose a meeting, choose some kind of engagement where you can say yes or no, where it's not like a you must be there type thing, right? Like, look at the importance of it, look at your contribution to the meeting, really try to, do you really need to be there? Like,
Yeah.
do you actually need to be there? And just say no. Just say I'm not able to attend this, please let me know, share the minutes of meetings after, whatever may be, and just send that email in a very polite way. Like, we're not going to go into specifics of what exactly you're going to say, but choose one meeting this month, for example, or this week, whatever. It depends on your muscles of saying no right now. It depends on where you are. Choose one meeting to say no to and see what happens. Choose one that you don't really like, why am I part of this meeting, right?
Yeah.
Choose a meeting that you don't really need to be at. Start that and see what happens, and I bet you the world will not end. And what you're doing by doing that is you are letting your brain kind of recognize, like, hey, it's not a threat if I say no, we're gonna be okay. Because what's
Yeah.
happening is, like, your brain is like, whoa, like, I don't know how to say no. Because what's happening is the thoughts are probably going, okay, if I say no, does that mean I'm not productive? Does that mean I'm not a team player? Does that mean I'm not a good manager? Does that mean I'm not doing my work? Et cetera, et cetera. No, it's called priorities. It's called energy management, time management, right? So choosing that, or choose one task. Look at the things that you need to do. Choose one task that somebody else can do. I guarantee you,
Yeah.
if you really think hard, right? I'm
Love
sure
that.
there's things you can delegate. And I know there's some managers that I work with, and they're like, no, I need to do all of it. Let's look at it again. Look at it 3, 4, 5 times until you find a piece that you can delegate. Because the first reaction is going to be, no, no, I have to do it all. Why do
Yeah.
you have to do that? And keep asking, why? Do you really have to do that? Who else can? If somebody could do it, who could it be on your team?
AI.
Well,
We talked.
that's a whole other story
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
ChatGPT, can ChatGPT do it for you? Probably. So, like, but that's the reality. Like, and it's like, don't talk yourself out of it because you don't want to change. That's the number one thing people need to recognize. The time that we are going to change. The first thing that comes to mind is, like, everything, all the excuses why we shouldn't change. And so
Yeah.
just recognizing that and going beyond that thought and saying, okay, if I were to give this a shot, if I were to delegate to somebody, how would that look like? And then if you are going to delegate to somebody, make sure that also that person has all the information to make the delegation successful. That's another. People like, well, they didn't do the right job. Did you set expectation? Did you tell them how to do it? Do you think they can do it? And it might take slightly longer that first time, but you are not only going to be teaching and mentoring and coaching that person to do this task from now on, you're also investing in them as if you would want to somebody to invest in you. So I think, just, it's not like you're delegating because you're like, oh, I'm just dumping this work. No, you're investing in that person. You're teaching them something. That's why they're there. Your team is there to do work. And if you're not giving them work, if you're just hogging all the work yourself and you're not allowing people to grow and evolve, that's not beneficial to anybody involved. So I
Yeah.
think, again, choosing one thing you can delegate, one no you can say to,
Yeah.
it could be just even a personal event. Learn to say no without having to make any excuses if you don't need to, right? So, and I
And
think
you
it's a
have
big
that
thing.
feeling like I don't want to go to this thing, and you kind of force
Yeah,
yourself.
if you're like, why am I part of this meeting? Either
Yeah.
clarify why you're part of it if you don't know, but if you're like, I really don't need to be a part of this. If you're just in the back still working and you're just on camera, then tell the organizer, like, hey, even if it is your manager, or you can tell your manager, your senior leadership, like, hey, I have these 5 things I need to accomplish today, and I know this meeting is coming up. Which one of these things you want me to drop in order to accommodate being for that meeting? Setting boundaries as well so that you can be effective in your work, because otherwise you're going to be working 10, 12 hours a day because you can't say no. And I bet you there's many people that will listen to this like, oh, I'm that person. I see this a
I,
lot. I
I
see
was
this a
that
lot.
person. Well, the
Um,
thing is, one TED talk that really caught my attention, Bozoma St. John, she's the CMO for Netflix. She used to be at
mhm.
Uber, before that Apple, and then Pepsi. I mean, she is like the chief marketing officer of of every year of and she says in her TED talk something that really felt it just felt so right. Like I thought I was going crazy when I started to be so narrow and not ask counsel and just be like following my guts and not too data driven either. And she was like, data slows us. Data is an excuse a lot of the time. People rely on it or wait for it or will have it. I'm not saying data doesn't count. Data is part of decision making, should be. Um, but in a lot of instances, like it holds you back and it also justifies or rationalize a lot of things that you wouldn't otherwise do if you were to listen to your intuition as a leader. Do you, I mean, how do you see leaders hiding behind data? Is that something that you find often to be slowing business down, or?
Hmm. That's a good question. When I hear you speak about that, what kind of comes to mind is, analysis about, paralysis analysis, right? So
Right.
people that are very like numbers driven, that are very, it's more of like a personality. So there's, you have your left brain, your right brain kind of people, right? So people that are very driven by numbers, they almost need certain things to be convinced. And I think, and on the opposite side, there are leaders that are more tapped into their emotions. When you're a leader, you really need to tap into both. So you need to find that balance, right? And really just, there's no right or wrong way. It's just really evaluating and auditing, are your decisions, or are your actions slowing down certain things? Are you creating obstacles that are unnecessary? And this is where coaching comes in, because you get to have a soundboard, and this is what a lot of leaders don't have, because a lot of people that are on top, they, unless they hire somebody externally, internally, if you're the boss, very unlikely that somebody's going to be like, listen, I think there's a better way to do this,
Yeah.
right? It depends, of course, like, but in most cases, like, you almost kind of like a loner up top, and you have to do all these decisions by yourself, and you're doing the best that you can based on who you are and how you've been operating. But it helps having that soundboard to help you brainstorm, like, is there a different way to do this? And essentially sometimes adjusting our natural personality traits to make sure that we're tapping into both of those sides of our brain, not just like, okay, I'm a technical person or I'm an analytical person, I really need 3 days, to make a decision. In a leadership position, sometimes you need to make a decision like this. And on the flip side, there are people like myself, right, who are more on the side of things of like driven by gut feelings and driven by emotions. And I need to stop myself and say, I need to make sure that this decision is objective. So I need to go back to the data. So I think it's just tapping into
Yeah,
both,
knowing yourself.
knowing
Yeah,
yourself, like
enough.
self-awareness, right? Like,
Yeah.
and knowing kind of
So,
like what's your tendency, and
mhm.
is it serving you, and is it serving the people that you're working with, is it serving the business, or is it the thing that's creating obstacles, bottlenecks, etc. So I think just asking yourself those questions first and foremost, and then you go to solutions afterwards, but getting to the root cause, because a lot of times we're always attacking this problem up here, which is like, it's not really the root cause. And if you start asking like yourself, like kind of digging deeper, and you're like, oh, but the real reason this is happening is because of this trait or whatever, maybe, or situation or cause. So instead, what we do is we put a band-aid on a broken leg, and we, until we have to go to the doctor again, instead of fixing the actual leg.
Yeah. Oh my God. And which brings us to self awareness, because I just I keep watching these videos about people repeating. I think Simon Sinek was saying, "Hey, self awareness is the best thing that you can have, because if you're self aware, you realize, okay, I'm actually not that great of a listener. I got that feedback. Let me go and figure this out instead of being resisting
Mm.
and delaying and procrastinating over that change that needs to happen, and
Yeah.
being maybe just open, I guess, to improving on that. If there's like one quality in leadership that you can boil down, what would it be? Because some people will attribute it to self-awareness or good decision making, or it could be like to be really purposeful,
Mm.
intentional, or you said people now, especially Gen Z, they want people to inspire them in leadership positions. Like what would be that one trait if you could boil it down?
I wouldn't put it to one trait. I would put it under the umbrella of probably like emotional intelligence.
Okay.
I'm sure people kind of hear about it all the time, but that's where it's really at, because emotional intelligence is self-awareness. It is emotion managing of your emotions and all those things. So I think it's empathy, it's listening, it's all those things. So I think just the umbrella of emotional intelligence, which is a continuous journey. It's not like you're like, oh, now I'm emotionally
Nah,
intelligent. There's no such thing.
yeah.
You can elevate your skill set and etc. And just for people that are listening, to make it practical. So it's like, okay, how do I know if I'm self-aware? Because another thing that's kind of interesting is when people start to do self-awareness exercises, depending on what they're doing, like, you have to be self-aware in order to be able to answer certain questions, so depending on the assessment. So, and
Yeah.
sometimes you think you're doing X, Y, and Z, so you're answering because you think you're doing it. Sometimes we're not even honest with ourselves. So I
Yeah.
think just being mindful of what assessments you take, number one. Number two, doing even like a 360 at your in your team, like a 360, an anonymous 360 assessment of for your team to give about you.
Yeah.
Asking for feedback, continuously asking for feedback, working with a coach as well as a great one, right? And really just trying to collect data, people collect data from external sources, doing like anonymous surveys to try to get people to give you insights about how is it that you behave, and do it anonymously. So it's, depending on the relationships you have, but when you do it anonymously, people tend to be more kind of honest. And also making sure that you're asking open-ended questions. So not asking questions, am I a good leader? No, like, or, kind of, if I had blind spots, what would those be?
Yeah.
Like, what are my blind spots? Right? It's just, I recommend to this. I do this every year. I do it for fun. It's part of my personal branding kind of thing, where to making sure that my audience still thinks I do what I do, still remembers what I do, and
Yeah.
I'm positioning myself correctly. So looking at yourself as a brand and saying, okay, like, I need to check in with my audience. Like, are they still buying what I'm selling?
Yeah.
Right? And in this case, it's our leadership. So, and how can I improve my product? And you are the product. So, looking at yourself as the product and saying, how do I touch base with my customers, and
Yeah.
applying the same thing,
Oh, I
through
love what you said.
whatever it is. Yeah.
The product. You are the product that you're trying to, I guess,
So
promote,
essentially,
sell, and
yeah.
so you do this to your audience, to your followers, or maybe the team that you work with.
Yeah, like colleagues, like my network. I
Yeah.
do it with my network mainly, just to kind of like people that I've interacted with, people that have seen me in
Yeah.
action, that I've interacted with. So, and what's interesting is that the like you let's say you do this, like anybody can do this, you don't have to be in a leadership position, obviously. So you can send an anonymous survey to, like, let's say you send it to 40 people, and 30 people will tell you, these are your blind spots, and 30 out of 40, and you're like, wow, I never thought about that. Or you're like, yep, okay, I see that in me, so good. So your self-awareness is, you got that a little bit, you understand your
Yeah.
blind spots. Or somebody gives you some insight about yourself, like, another question could be like, if you were to recommend me for somebody, or if you were to come to me
Yeah.
for advice, like, what would that be for? And if they give you something out of this world, you're like, huh, I never thought about that. I wonder what is it that I'm doing to make people feel that way. Right.
Yeah.
So I think that, and if you have a lot of people saying the same answer, and you're like, oh, I never thought about that. So that will give you an indication. And if somebody's like me, who I'm my own worst critic, so and this is, I'm working on it, okay, guys, but I am continuously feeling like I'm failing. So, and so when so it's like, it's just something I try to overcome. So for me, feedback is important to make sure, like, for me, it's almost like I need, like, am I doing okay, and then, like, when people are like, no, but you're doing all these things, it's hard for me to convince myself. So I'm always my own worst critic. So
Yeah.
and it's not healthy, for what I do. So it's probably why I do a million and one things continuously, because I feel like I'm always behind, and that
Yeah.
I've been like that since childhood. So it's a different conversation. So I think it's just like, you know certain things will help you, like, what, I'm doing fine, you know what I mean, like, it's okay.
Well,
And
labeling, right? I heard that
mm,
book from Brené Brown,
yeah,
the last one, the
Atlas of the Heart.
Atlas of the
Yeah.
Heart. She talks about like really naming the emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Like I will have moments that are just coming out of nowhere, but they're silly. They're like raw and they're childish, and I'll be like, oh, so you're angry. You're angry because they didn't notice you, or they didn't compliment you,
Yeah.
or you're you're feeling resentful. So I'll talk to myself about that moment, and either in front of the mirror or just like when I'm alone, preferably. And it's really funny because then it kind of like when you verbalize it, it kind of goes away in that moment of, not completely away, but it loses that hold on you somehow.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
same with people. Like if you're, if you're not having a good time with your colleague, like laying the cards on the table. So I feel you don't like me. Maybe I'm right. Maybe I'm wrong. That's how I feel. Nevertheless, should we fix it? Should we not fix it?
yeah.
And I mean, it's a vulnerable place to be, and I don't like it, but it has helped me enormously to state the obvious. Yes.
Absolutely.
I think
Yeah,
that's a good trick to our brain. I guess neuroplasticity explains it. But anyways, let's go
yeah,
back to the
yeah,
topic. But what you were saying in the book, you mentioned purposeful leadership. So people, like 89% apparently, want leaders that know where they're going. And then
yeah,
another thing that I was also, like Wikipedia, these contributors don't get paid, but they get recognition. And so recognition apparently, increases by like 20% or something, the rate of engagement. So that it's not a salary recognition, it's not money that you get in your pocket, but it pays
hmm. Well, it's
dividends, right?
yeah. Mm.
Do you see that? I don't know if you've mapped it out.
Yeah, so it's so what you're kind of saying is like engaging in different ways, although it doesn't pay you, it increases that credibility essentially. And if you think about it, it's kind of like same thing with like a product, right? Like in order for people to buy the product, they need to trust the product. They need to
Yeah,
trust that it's going to give X, Y, and result. They need to kind of maybe like it or the purpose of that product. So same thing. I think that, and I've done this a lot growing my personal brand, is like just really engaging with the audience. A lot of that stuff I wasn't paid for, but it was like, how do I continue to put myself out there to create great content, to share knowledge, to and do this consistently for like the last decade or so, right, so far. So it's like that's how you build, because people see a story. And what I can, and now like when I see like certain people that are coming out and they start like doing, like, I don't know, trying to position themselves as experts, but there's no backstory. Like, why should I trust you? Like, why? Like, if you're a new product in the market, I'm not going to buy you. I'm going to stick with the product that I know. So it's just like basic psychology, right, of humans. Like, we want to make sure that whoever we're interacting, whatever we're buying, we know it, we like it, we trust it. So these sort of engagements, like, unpaid things and things that you're doing just to kind of put your knowledge out there, is all building up trust with the audience. And that's what it's for. So, and a lot of people make a mistake of not seeing that as value. And they're like, oh, well, no, I'm not going to do it for free. I've heard so many people. And the minute somebody tells me, no, 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 I don't do things for free, I'm talking about people that are starting off. So I'm not talking about people that are like established and like, it's like, it's their bread and butter at that point, of course. Like, but when you're starting off or when you're just building your brand, right? When you're just building your brand, you gotta build it in whatever way needed. And if you're not willing to do certain things outside of a paycheck, if you're
yeah,
not willing to do certain things, you're not going to grow. It just doesn't work that way. Like yes, I get it. Like certain things, like you want to be paid for, but and it's you got. I mean, I'm not saying everything, but I'm saying like there's certain things you need to evaluate. Like, is this an opportunity that is going to help me grow my brand? Is this an opportunity that I can turn, or is this a gig that I can turn into an opportunity I can utilize to
yeah,
my advantage? If yes, yes. And also part of, and this is the idealist and maybe the naive person in me, is like, if you love what you do and you want to truly help others, you should be willing to kind of push as much out there as possible. And
yeah,
people are like, well, I don't want to give my secrets away. I don't want to do that. Well, listen,
yeah. But
like realistically, like
yeah,
I don't know how many secrets there are, unless you're like selling an algorithm or something. In most industries, like if you're afraid to put stuff out there, like listen, how many things are out there about how to be a better leader? How many things are about how to lose weight, how to get in shape? If it's no secret, yet how many people are good leaders and how many people are in shape today?
yes,
So don't worry, your secrets, no, it's not about the secrets. It's about people using it. And that's where you come in. Like, you know what I'm saying? So just putting stuff out there, if people want to do something, they're going to do it. So you're giving away secrets, or like they're like, I don't want to share my content or this and that, unless it's like something super valuable, like in science or specific fields. But I'm talking about like regular industry folks, like if you're afraid to put stuff out there and you don't want to share and you're hogging it, or you want people to pay for it, for certain things, like you're not in it for the right reasons, and it's not going to be long term. Yeah, you might make some money short term, but long term you're not going to sustain, because people will see through the BS and the
Yeah.
ingenuity, like the lack of genuinity in you and the lack of authenticity, and then you just see it. Like if you're just there to make money, it doesn't work long term. Same for leadership. If you're just there to make your business make money, yeah, at short term it will work. Long term it just won't. It won't work. That's not. I mean, it's obviously it's not from my experience. Just any look at any company that's sustained long term. Look at any professional you know. It's true. So there's no magic formulas. There's no shortcuts. It's just putting in the work.
Yeah. No, I mean, I guess it also speaks to the drivers of everyone. Like some people are driven by work harder, otherwise you get fired. But some others are like work because then you get the bonus or you get to be part of the IPO and we're gonna. So it really depends on who you're leading. I think some people are led by fear and others are more focused on their hopes and dreams of the future.
Yeah.
I think that's also something that I mean I know in my team like how to motivate them, and it's different. They're different, right? I mean, different
Yeah.
things will work for different people, but yeah, I totally get where you're coming from. I love what you said, like give your best for free um, to build trust, and trust is not quantifiable, just like confidence. But would you say it's not valuable? No, of course people want more of that, and it converts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, well, I don't know if we should go into AI. Do you think we should? I think
I don't know. I don't know enough about it. I don't know enough about it, but the only thing I do know is that we need to be aware of it. So any professional today, because I've even heard like a lot of companies that are like people that are going through layoffs right now, depending on the industry. So like everything I say, it depends, right? Like you gotta know your industry, your position, your role, the culture of your company, the culture of the country, et cetera, et cetera. So everything is dependable on who you are, where you are. But generally speaking, technology is affecting all of us. AI, ChatGPT, whatever's coming next, it's going to affect you. For many people, it's already affecting them, like content creators, right? Writers, even with the fake, deep fake stuff. Now there's like, a singer can, like a AI was pretending to be, I think it was like Rihanna and singing a Beyonce song,
wow.
and it was like as if it was Rihanna singing it. The other day, earlier today, actually, I saw somebody on my Instagram, John Sene. He was like, he created this deep fake using Barack Obama, introducing him on
Wow.
stage, and it was like it's as if Barack Obama is speaking and introducing this person,
Brilliant.
and
Oh
it
my
was,
god.
it's, and that's a deep fake. So it's phenomenal. So people who are not yet using ChatGPT or playing around with it, you don't have to use it. There's a lot of people feel different ways about it. Or you're not using AI. Well, you are. Everybody's using AI. Like our iPhones and phones are full of AI, right? So look into it, see how it might be impacting you, see how you can, if there's courses you can take on how to utilize
Yeah.
AI for, if you're in the creative space, like digital creators, like that's a scary field to be in right now, because it's like now you can generate images. And sure, there's the argument of like, well, there's no story, it's just a computer providing an image. But as a company, like this is a real thing that's happening right now. Companies are laying off, big percentage of their content creation teams and writers and editors and all those people, because they're like, well, we'll just keep a couple of people that can manage ChatGPT and AI, and we don't really need the other 20 people. So, and that's just the reality. No matter how we feel about what feelings we have, that's the reality that we're facing. So, and same thing with developers. Maybe that's the next thing that's going to be,
Right.
that's going to be, like impacted. I don't know, but I don't know enough about it. But I know that we should pay attention. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Oh my god, that is pretty scary. But another field that I've seen change fast. Well, Iris is here with us, and we were talking about how software sales has changed for the better, but it's definitely a big change where we're not just you know able to see big deals come through, but we're now including the client in the product development, but also being part of the client's change and transformation as business partners. And so the sales function for software enterprise sales is transforming into something a lot bigger than just, a transactional
Mm.
exec
It's almost like
with,
a partnership now, right?
yeah,
Those.
like a, yeah, exactly. We probably call it in the future a partnership executive or something along
Yeah.
those lines, right? When it's not just about getting big deals in, but more like a sustainable, loyal, yeah, relationship, like yeah, like a trusted advisor, and it's a longer term, you know, relationship as well with products that will hopefully see them through. I feel that with my clients, right? Because in the
Mm.
beginning it was just like, let me help you as a career coach get a job, but now they get the job, they come back, wait, I need to build my 90 days plan, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and then they're doing that, and then they're like, wait, I'm thinking about board advisory positioning, let's look into that, okay.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, they're never going to go away, right?
Yeah. But
Which
you
is
don't want them to go away.
not to go away. But I'm thinking, okay, maybe we're extending the life cycle of these relationships or those projects, those
Mm-hmm.
programs to being maybe less clients but longer lived.
Engagement. Well, yeah, I mean, that actually brings up a good point. So, um, again, we see the layoffs happening, right? So, positioning yourself, and this is tough in a remote environment, so you have to be super creative how you do that. But I'm all up for remote work. But what it does, like facts, is what it does, especially for younger generations coming in, it limits visibility in front of the larger organization. So depending on the size of the company, et cetera, of course, but you know, if you're a person who's working for a company and you have never interacted with anybody else outside of your specific team, to me that's a red flag. I would highly recommend finding ways to connect with people outside their team. Again, depends on the size of the company. So if you're in a $400,000 people company, you might not be able to connect to the CEO. If you're in a 200 people company, you should be able to connect with leadership, right? As well. But positioning yourself where people know who you are, not only within your project or within your department, but other areas, connecting with people in social gatherings, making sure to attend those. I still see a lot of people not attending company-wide events because they're like, oh, they're just comfortable. They don't want to get out of their comfort zone. And it's again like do it in a way that makes sense. If you don't feel comfortable in big environments like with a lot of people, maybe reaching out online, having a phone, a Zoom call or something
Mhm.
with camera on. That's another thing, because what's happening is that a lot of companies who are laying people off is because they don't know what to do with them. So before they get to that point with you, try to give them an alternative of something that you can do for that company, right? Depending on your skill set, which is meaning that you need to stay in tune of where the company needs are. Talking to people, talking to your manager, make sure your managers, you have that relationship. Again, being mindful, not all managers are great, but if you have a good manager, somebody who's open and transparent, really identifying like, hey, like I know I'm doing development work, but I'm actually really good with clients as well. I'd love to be able to go into a client, or I'm not great with clients right now, but can we talk about getting my soft skills up? What do you recommend I do? So that you are not just dismissed if they don't need a developer anymore, for example, but you go into client management or account management kind of role, right? So making sure that you can pivot into a different career path within the same organization. For many companies, they will welcome that. So if they're hiring for a particular role and they see a person there, they know that the person internally whose role maybe is kind of going away, and they can do that job, they will think of you as long as you let them know, hey, this is what I'm interested in. These are the skills that I have, and I would like to give this a shot. So it almost, it's you taking responsibility for your own career development and making sure people know that you're interested in other things. Nobody's going to come to you and start knocking on your door. Hey, have you thought about that? Sometimes it's very rare though. So how can you position yourself as an individual? What skill set do you need to have to make sure you have a job tomorrow, 2 years from now, 3 years from now? Right? So, and making sure you're doing your part, Because if all you're doing is you're sitting behind a computer and you're not even turning your cameras on when you have your team meetings, and then
No.
and then you get laid off, like I'm not saying that it's going to guarantee that you're not going to be laid off, but it's going to significantly increase your chances of staying with the company versus just being laid off. If nobody knows who you are or what you do, on a larger scale, it's very difficult to kind of continue to grow. Again, same with the product. If a product nobody uses, or the product does only one thing and that thing goes away, you're going to stop buying the product. So being mindful of kind of where do you need to upskill and who needs to know what is it
Yeah.
that you do, volunteering for things with other teams, other departments, just to gain that skill set and just to, again, position yourself among other team members, I think is essential today for everybody.
Yeah, job switching, right? They have programs like that, and
Yeah.
even I mean, to work cross functionally already should be a thing. Most people have that functionality. Being end to end, I think that's one skill that is required more and more. Being hands on but not a doer, like there's those fine lines to always navigate. That's what is currently, I think. But how about adding, like we talked about AI, but we also see that adding some of the trendy, topics to that are transversal, like sustainability, diversity, inclusion. Yeah. What else? Yeah, AI.
Mm-hmm.
And for people in different industries like fintech, getting their or people in banking, yeah, transitioning into fintech, getting more familiar with blockchain technology. So I think that also brings a little bit of longevity, like taking them out of traditional industries where we know, like if you're in automotive, let's think about mobility. If you're in oil and gas, maybe go to consulting and help them be sustainable. Or
Yeah.
going one step beyond. And some of my clients have done these shifts really well. Or and not going like from Amazon to Zalando, but going from maybe like being a small fish in a big pond to
Mm-hmm.
maybe like a scale up, like a bigger fish in a smaller pond, where you can teach people to scale now that you've figured that out,
Yeah.
hopefully. um
But
yeah.
I think that again, just to be practical here, people are sitting there like, well, how do I do that? Um, and listen, I mean, you and I've been doing this for many years. This coach, I'm curious to hear your thoughts, but unfortunately, for better or for worse, it's going to require you to do things you're not comfortable because that you don't feel comfortable doing. Because if you felt comfortable doing those things, the chances are you would have been doing them and you would not be in this situation. So let's just recognize the fact that whatever you might need to do, that you haven't done it before, which means it's going to probably suck the first time, right? For many of us. So if you don't know where to start, like start with identifying again what are some areas you can diversify your experience that makes sense or maybe change, and how do you do that, how do you connect to those networks, attending certain meetups, events, asking people around, looking at LinkedIn events, looking at the events in your area, reaching out to people on LinkedIn who might be doing things that you're interested in doing, right? And we can do a whole separate session one day on the approach, like how do you actually connect with those people. But there's different ways that you can do to try to tap into. If you don't know where to start, Google. I am doing this right now. What other skills would I need? Like as basic as that, like basic research. Like just look at researching what's happening. If you have people in your network that are willing to have a chat, beautiful. If you have mentors, beautiful. Like that's where you start, right? So a lot of people like, I know I need to use, but I don't know how. So the way you started through these small different activities that will drive you to that next step and the next step. There's no magic formulas. And I've told you, like before we started recording, as I was like, whenever somebody's like 5 ways you can do this, I don't believe there's 5 ways, 10 ways, or one way to do anything. I believe it's experimenting, because your situation is different from everybody else's situation. You know yourself better than anybody else. So identifying what works best for you, the only way to try to do that is experimenting. When you don't know where to start with the basics that I've just mentioned, right? And from there it will kind of grow your pathway into wherever you need to go. But it's about consistently experimenting until you kind of find that way. There's no magic formula to it, and it can be uncomfortable. But again, thinking of what can I do, one thing I can do this week, one thing I can do this week to try to, pivot my career, or to try to get an introduction internally with a company, or as a leader to try to delegate, to etc., to say no, all those things. So you don't need to go to 5 events this week, right?
No,
One
yeah,
thing you
no.
can do, like one thing you can do this week or this month, whatever, whatever works. So
Yeah, that wouldn't be too sustainable. But yeah, I mean, maybe just to give people some something to follow. Is there I mean, I can also share my journey in terms of like time management or energy management. But do you have like any advice in terms of how you would organize your calendar? Like, do you organize your calendar in a specific way? Because that
yeah.
is really practical, and sometimes people just don't know where to start. So start there, because if it's in your calendar, you will normally honor what's there, and if it's not, then don't do it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Um, Um, so again, I'll share like my way, but again, like it's to each his own. So I'm a morning person. So I'm up at 5, just on daily basis. I do reserve my mornings for a couple of different things. So, and I try to balance it out. So a couple of mornings every week, I do personal training. So I'm a personal trainer. So I actually train other people. So, and my clients want to do 5 a.m. workouts. So I do my workouts with them. So that's like some of my mornings is just dedicated to that, right? And I know that morning I already put in my head, like, I'm not gonna be able to do my routine because I need to go with a client and train, right? Other mornings, I of course like do the basics of just taking a walk. I
yeah,
enjoy my coffee. I enjoy my breakfast. It's just me time. This is also the time that I kind of do a lot of creative work because I don't have a lot of noise in my head. So I try to knock all that out. So I go into my regular kind of work day, etc. I work pretty much 5 days a week. My days are pretty packed all around. I choose at least one event per week to attend. So I have an event this evening that I'm attending for networking. Sometimes it's two, depends on the week, but I try to choose at least one. On weekends, this is my kind of family time and me time and etc. I do spend a couple hours on a Sunday to prepare for the week ahead, which changes my whole week. So 2 hours on a Sunday of dedicated, focused work to knock out whatever I can for the week ahead, schedule emails, send out certain things, etc. I schedule a lot of emails for the week ahead. It really kind of makes me much more productive during the weekdays I'm focused. So 2 hours of focus time on Sunday is like 2 days over a weekday because it's so hard to stay focused when you're getting phone calls coming in or messages, etc. So that really works for me. And then I'm a kind of person, like, I like to, work a lot and work hard. And then I reward myself with a little, like, a mini break, a mini vacation every couple of months. I take like a long weekend where I don't do anything, or just get away. So, but I just, I block things off. I have 1 hour for social media planning where I schedule all my social media posts, just 1 hour a week. I have my 1 hour for podcasting where I just record a podcast, etc. So I just try to do like blocks of time, and it works for me. It works for me. So yeah, that's just a basic. But and I sleep. I make sure I get my 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night. So if I sleep at 10 p.m., I don't wake up till 6 a.m. So there's no, like, unless I really have to be up before, I always try to make sure that I get those 8 hours. Usually I sleep before 10 so that I can get up at my regular 5 a.m. But that 7 to 8 hours, I got to get those in if I can. Just
yeah, that makes a
non-negotiable.
difference for sure.
Yeah.
And
What about
okay,
you? What about you? Tell me more. What do you do?
well, now I'm a bit. It's really funny because I was reading this book called How to Change, and this woman was saying, I forgot her name, Katie Milkman. She said, the best time to change is when it's a fresh start, like New Year's Eve, birthday, moving flats, breaking up, or having a kid. So I'm like, yeah, that's true. I have these chapters really when I had my life, interrupted or starting new, fresh. And so it was my birthday, and just now, early.
Yeah, happy. I remember. Yeah, yeah. Happy belated birthday.
And I always ran, but I was never like running every day, like
Hmm.
every day. Come on. that's too much. I thought, no, come on, every day, that's crazy. But then I'm preparing for a race, so I decided on my birthday, April 10th, I was going to run every day. And so normally I wake up early as well. I love the morning. It's like my peaceful me time. So
Yeah.
whatever I do, I write or I don't know, read or, something from me. So running is definitely for me. So I'll put like, I reward myself for running with my favorite podcast or whatever YouTube video I want to watch.
Yeah.
And but outdoors, I hate running indoors. And that's it. And then I come back, take a shower, start my day, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I have like a nice juicy cocktail with like fresh fruits. Cocktail, no,
Yeah.
not alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
Smoothie.
I hydrate, and that's it. And then I start my day. Yeah, I try to stay away from social media, but it's really funny because you and I, we publish a lot, but I don't consume so much from
Yeah.
social media,
I don't
but I do
either.
pour a lot. But it's the best way to go, right? Because otherwise I would it's so distracting. And and then I just work, yeah. But my fun work is like Thursday afternoon, like podcasts and lives and
Yeah.
events like this. But then Friday afternoon, I don't work. I'm with the kid,
Mm-hmm.
and also on the weekend. But like you said, Sunday, unless I want to have a very bloody Monday, I have to be a little bit online. Yeah,
Yeah. You gotta do something. Yeah. Otherwise, it's hard to do all those things.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's so true. Sunday helps. Like after 5 p.m., it's kind of like becoming Monday again. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It is.
yeah,
Yeah. But it's
so that's it.
magical. It's magical. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I really enjoyed this. Thank you so much, Elena. I
Yeah.
don't want to hold you further because you've got things to do, and the
So
audience
do
was
you.
no. Well, I'm gonna go prepare dinner at 7 p.m. here, and I'm really pleased that we got the chance to speak again. And thank you for putting together this amazing guide to awesome leadership. You are such an inspiration for so many reasons for all of us following you, and so this will be shared on our both our LinkedIn's, but also it goes to YouTube so anyone can watch it afterwards. And I'll send you the link if you want to share it with your friends and followers. Thank you again.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's always good to talk to you, Rebecca. Have a wonderful weekend over there.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Bye bye, everyone.